All right, welcome again to Unsafe Spaces. Randy Cross here with you. And I want to thank you for joining us. We're going to have a little fun. Might be a little shorter than normal, but we'll still have a good time. If you have any suggestions, again, it's producer at unsafespacesusa.com going forward. All right, let's start off with a little football. Football was sort of the theme of the weekend for me, as it usually is this time of the year, and especially on the college football side. So let's roll some college football scores, because there were some great ones. Let's start down here in our general vicinity. The Georgia-Auburn game, which turned into the Auburn-Georgia game with not much participation from the Georgia side. Auburn had a fantastic game. It was War Eagle this and War Eagle that. I'm sure my daughter Crystal's extremely happy her team thrashed her older sister Kelly's UGA boys. Georgia is still in the East as the East representative in the SEC championship, so they will probably play either Alabama or Auburn, and we'll find out which one of those here in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a great matchup between Auburn and Alabama, and Gus Malzahn and his football team should be very, very proud of what they've done and the way they're doing it. And if they can pull this off of the Georgia, Alabama, Georgia trifecta, they would be a legitimate two-loss team in the college football playoff. There's no doubt about that. Next score on the list was a game that was very highly anticipated. I will say, me personally, man, was I dead wrong about this. I had picked Miami every other week until this one, and then I decided I was going to outthink myself and go with the big physical running game. Well, the big physical running game of Notre Dame got run around. They stopped the run. They couldn't handle the speed in any phase of Miami's game, and kudos to Mark Richt, head coach of the Miami Hurricanes. The U is back. The turnover chain is a great gimmick for TV. Everyone's having a lot of fun with that. And how do you not have fun if you're Miami and you're 9-0 and looking at a pretty epic season, and there's nothing in front of you that would hinder your ability to have an undefeated season leading into the college football playoff the way they played last Saturday night. They totally dismantled what looked to be a slow and inferior football team in Notre Dame. Next score up, hey, it couldn't be the Big 12 without some crazy scoring games. This example, pretty nuts. 49-42. For those of you that watched it, it was an incredible performance by Mason Rudolph and company at Oklahoma State. Coach Gundy, he of the mullet, had enough late to overcome Iowa State, who has had a pretty special year, but late in this game, as they have come in a couple other games, they just haven't had the goods to be able to close and finish the deal. Oklahoma State did have that at the end, and they came out on top of this one. Next game, most of you, in fact, I would say 95 to 98% of the football fans in America didn't see this game. Matter of fact, the beginning of the game got switched over to another network because they were finishing up a NASCAR Truck Series race. Don't know what's up with that, but Stanford beat Washington and ending the Pac-12's any legitimate chance that the Pac-12 would get a college football playoff team in there, because every single member of the Pac-12 at this point has at least 2 losses, and whoever wins that North versus South matchup will not be in the college football playoff. 2 losses regardless. They won't have the kind of resume that an aforementioned Auburn would then have. But hey, way to go, Stanford, because they beat what I thought was the best team on the West Coast in the University of Washington. Move on to the next score. Hey, there's a theme here. I was wrong about this one too. TCU, I thought, had a really good chance of beating OU, but Baker Mayfield put some more cement into the argument that he will be the Heisman Trophy winner. Another one out of the University of Oklahoma. I believe the first quarterback to win the Heisman out of Oklahoma in a little bit. But he just threw pass after pass, on the run, in the pocket, under duress. It really didn't matter. He is the best player in the country right now. And I got a lot of respect for Bryce Love. I got a lot of respect for J.T. Barrett. Got a lot of respect for insert name here. But, man, it is clear right now Baker Mayfield is the best player in the United States. Last score is a little bit off the reservation, but nonetheless, it was a matchup in the Mountain Division out in the Mountain West, 59-52. What is this, the Big 12? Boise State goes to Colorado State and beats them. Pretty special game for Boise. These are the kind of games when you win them, they've got a great lasting kind of hangover effect, only from the standpoint of you do everything you can to win a game like this, and it comes out in your direction. For Mike Bobo and Colorado State, extremely frustrating, no doubt, but they've got to look on the bright side. You scored a lot of points. Okay, that'll do it for college football. Let's have a little look over on the NFL side. For those of you that this Veterans Holiday decided to watch NFL and see it, here's what you also might have caught. The Falcons had a dominating performance against the Dallas Cowboys. One of the more interesting scenarios in this game was kind of off the field between the owners, but that's for another time. But Matt Ryan and the Falcons played really well. Dak Prescott and company. Zeke Elliott must be easily their MVP because they looked a whole lot different than the team that had been playing the last few weeks with Elliott at running back. Next score, it was the battle of a one-loss team or one-win team against a clean slate of the Niners. Well, the Niners came out on top. Nice job by C.J. Beathard, the quarterback. He showed a lot of toughness. He showed a lot of grit. He had a long pass to Selleck, the tight end. He had a long pass to Godwin, the wide receiver. He was playing with a heavy heart. His wife had lost their child, and condolences to them now, or them for these last couple of days coming up. Would be really, really tough. But that was an incredible win for the 49ers over the Giants, and that will create a lot of, well, besides the Jets losing too, it'll create a lot of grief for the New York Giants and their coach and their organization. But, hey, that's the way it goes. The Patriots and the Broncos Sunday night was 41-16, doesn't describe it. The Patriots easily beat the Broncos, and this was in Denver. And this is a kind of patchwork Patriot team, scoring 41 points against what was at the beginning of this season thought to be a really good defense. Well, they can't score. They have no leadership at quarterback. I don't care if it's Simeon or Osweiler or who's playing quarterback. They just can't do much in the way of anything on the offensive side of the ball. And the Patriots beat them, and beat them pretty handily on a nice Sunday night. Can't say it was a close game. Can't say it was a fun game because I didn't watch it. Now, a game that is pretty amazing to me is the matchup between two teams that have traditionally in these last few years not been very good. The Texans continued that tradition, but how about the Rams? The Rams scored the fewest points in the NFL last year. This year, under Sean McVay, they are scoring the most points in the NFL. Just an amazing comeback, or bounce back, I should say, as a football team. And the Rams are for real. They really, really are. And yesterday was at the expense of the Houston Texans. But good to see. Very, very good to see. Jared Goff's a fun quarterback. They're a great offense. And with some of the personnel they got on the defensive side of the ball. They can also give some people grief. All right, let's go to the final score of the weekend from the NFL side. The New Orleans Saints. How do you not like the Saints? Drew Brees is scoring and throwing and playing like he's only 30, because he's a lot older than 30. He's more like 40, but he's playing very, very well. On offense, they are playing at a really high level. But the news story to me is Saints have a defense, and the Saints look pretty doggone good. Look at how the NFL is currently in the standings kind of on its ear. You're looking at the Titans, you're looking at the Jaguars, you're looking at the Eagles, you're looking at the Saints, you're looking at the Rams. Those are not your traditional powerhouses in the NFL. And all those guys are at or near the top of their divisions and playing as good a football as you've seen. So it's fun to see new people, new blood get involved in the NFL. All right, today for a brief little monologue is something that, if you've been paying attention, I mentioned earlier the game between the Falcons and the Cowboys was sort of a temporarily, I think, running feud between Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, and Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, when it comes to Roger Goodell. Now, for those of you not sort of up on the news, there's a bit of a fuss being made by Jerry Jones that he does not approve of the job that Roger Goodell's doing in context of him getting a big new extension. All sorts of crazy numbers being thrown around that, you know, Goodell wants $50 million and a private jet and blah, 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 blah. He makes a lot of money, put it that way. He makes easy $40 million a year to be the commissioner of the NFL. Now, Jerry Jones, to me, is just looking to make a smart business decision. Is there ego involved? Sure, there's ego involved. But this is an incredibly smart businessman. And he recognizes all the signs of trouble in the business that he loves of football. And I agree with him 100%. Now, this isn't about not kneeling on the sidelines. This isn't about all that. It's about the whole context. It's about the whole picture of the NFL. It's about their direction. It's about their leadership. And they would do well to listen, I think, to Jerry Jones. Now, am I a billionaire owner? I'm not even close. I'm barely a millionaire, maybe, if that. But this is really about getting a chance to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on. That's the commissioner's job. The commissioner, your job there is not only to keep your hand on the steering wheel of the game, it's also to see a little bit into the future, to anticipate, to lead. And if that's not being done, it's incumbent upon not only Jerry Jones and Arthur Blank, but every other owner to be sure that is being done. Because you can't convince me, if you look at the way the NFL is headed right now, that there aren't some windy turns coming up for the NFL. And if you don't watch yourself, you're going to drive off a cliff. All right, here we go. Let's head into a butt hurt of the week. Got a couple gems for you here. Yeah, there's our Matador. Again, he gets it in the end. Hey, you ever see psychics on TV, or you see psychic commercials late at night, or you ever wonder about, hey, how often are these guys right, or these ladies right? Is it just a guess? Is this a gimmick? Is it just not quite 100% legit? Well, there's some guys out there, and gals, that do a really good job and have had the ability to see into the future, whether it's Nostradamus or whoever you want to cite as your example. But here's a psychic. He says he predicted Trump's winning the Las Vegas massacre, Brexit, and he's announced that World War that reveals what will happen in 2018. It does not involve World War III, not to bury the lead here, but here's his part of his predictions for 2018.
I predicted last year that North Korea would become the focus of the world's attention and conflict. In fact, I predicted that back in 2014-15. I was talking about that, I believe. So this has become very focused in our minds now, of course. The main prediction about this I said last year was, I said Kim Jong-un will fall from power later in the year, maybe December 2017 or January 2018.
Oh, but Mr. Will be very butthurt if that is true. But good luck. Good luck at you. And if you are interested, you could scroll back and get that website information about getting a reading of your own to find out what's in your future. Next up, and the butthurt of the week is a family butthurt. And in this case, it would be the family ball. What went on over in China, with those of you that maybe haven't heard about it, UCLA basketball players, one of which was LiAngelo Ball, three guys were arrested for shoplifting in a upper crust shopping area in China. I believe it was in Shanghai. And they were accused of stealing Louis Vuitton sunglasses. And now this is in China. Again, okay? China is a communist country. China is a dictatorship. So bullies and morons like LeVar Ball have no sway there. He can go there with his little reality TV show, and he can talk about his kids, and he can pimp his baller brands. But if you go to a place like China, they're ballers too. And just shut up. Don't talk about the case. Your son is facing 3 to 10 years in a Chinese prison for stealing. It's a felony in a dictatorship. But does that stop Dad from giving you the Alfred E. Newman Mad Magazine, What Me Worry? Nah. Don't bet on it.
LeVar, do you have any update on LiAngelo?
No, man, I ain't got nothing yet. I'm gonna wait till I get some more intel what's going on, then I'll let y'all know what's up.
Do you have any concern, or do you think everything's gonna be okay?
Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Everybody making it a big deal. It ain't that big a deal.
And condolences to the boy's mother, the Ball family, the mom. She had a stroke a while back. And that's who was in the wheelchair that LeVar was pushing. I hope she's feeling better and hope she gets through this whole thing with this situation with her son. But it is serious, and it's not something you're going to be able to bluff and bluster your way through. Bill Walton had a great set of comments. If you didn't hear them or you haven't read them, I'll leave that to Google or YouTube. But he pretty much encapsulated, if you're a UCLA person, if you're a basketball fan, heck, if you're a human here, you have to be repulsed when a story like this comes out and embarrassed. And not enough people are properly embarrassed about how ridiculous this is, and it is ridiculous. All right, next up, real world news. Well, nothing's more real world at times that takes you back when you do look at news than remember the whole idea of Maverick and Goose, the need for speed? Well, if you've got a need for speed, has Dodge got a demon for you? Wow. The Dodge Demon. Yeah, that's not a typo. The Dodge Demon has 840 horsepower. That's a plane. That's a land rocket. That's legit street legal? Really? Check this out.
When we started out to build a Demon, we didn't start out to compete with anyone else in the industry. We started out working from our background and being the best version of what we could be, because we are completely different. We are not trying to be a sports car. We are not trying to be a pony car. We're trying to be a street strip muscle car, and there's no one else in that space.
Wow. There's nobody in that space like that. That's for sure. That's a car that you immediately are the fastest thing on the street. Short of having to pay, what, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million from some exotic spaceship car. That's price-wise, too. It's not reasonable. Don't get me wrong. But the price is going to be pretty feisty. But the performance and the power, wow. Wow. You know, if you've got compensation issues, is that a car for you? Next up is a story that I had to shake my head, especially in the context of what happened with the Texas church massacre with the former Air Force veteran who had been discharged, who has mental issues. The Army has announced they have a 80,000 goal for enlistment. And remember, this is a volunteer Army. So they are offering not only cash inducements to join, they're lifting parts of the ban on recruits with a history of self-mutilation and other mental health issues. Did we learn nothing last week? Mental health issues in this country are significant issues. When you start talking about, oh, I don't know, defending the country, walking around with guns, I mean, just, it's crazy. Come on, get your stuff together. And is that discrimination? No, it's not discrimination. That is nuts. But hopefully people will come to their senses on this and come to their senses in a pretty timely manner when it comes to this issue, because it makes me want to do exactly what that young lady's doing right there, to consider some of the things that could happen. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about an issue that it seemed like a kind of far off, just crazy left field kind of story. And that was a story about the plague in Madagascar. Well, it's not a crazy faraway story. A couple weeks later, it has progressed. And they've now come out with other issues and stories that say there's millions at risk as the Black Death, not always a good sign for a disease when it's called the Black Death, may mutate and become untreatable until we can figure out another way to treat it. But this is for real. I mean, they are spraying and disinfecting in Madagascar and other parts of Africa. And if this thing gets any traction, you're talking about millions and millions of people. Take this seriously. This is kind of like the Ebola thing.
These are the culprits partly responsible for the plague spreading in Madagascar. Infected rats spread the bubonic plague, while the pneumonic plague is carried from person to person. More than 160 people have been infected. On average, 200 to 600 people are infected annually in frequent outbreaks of the plague in Madagascar's rural areas. But this time, it spread to populated parts. The government has now banned public meetings in the capital, Antananarivo.
We buy a mask because we have heard of the disease that is spread through breathing. So just to be on the safe side, you never know.
You can't overreact to this. Yeah, it's got to be stamped out. And remember where this is happening. This is happening, you know, in the part of Africa that's very nearby places like Saudi Arabia, and it's a very delicate area, is what I'm trying to say. Pay attention to this story and hope not only we do, but everybody pays attention to this story. This is some serious stuff. All right, let's go to a little lighthearted fun, and that means tinfoil hat. Ah, yeah, even looks like she's got a little tinfoil in her teeth. This was a story that when I first saw it, it caught my attention just by virtue of, there's an ancient Atlantean civilization under the Antarctic. But it got really weird from there. And when I say really weird, when you're talking about pole shifts and Antarctica and India and atom bombs and nuclear things going on, that's really weird. So they claim they've got pictures revealing what is under the ice in Antarctica, but you can't. Reading it doesn't do it justice. You got to listen to it. Listen to some of this stuff.
So the part that you don't hear is that the Egyptians or whoever was in that region, which includes the original Aryans, which became Siberia after this happened, and then they migrated down into India and Iran, and then on over into Europe eventually. After they'd repelled the invaders, they wanted to finish the war, and they dropped a nuke on them, or several nukes, and the Earth flipped on its axis.
All right, let's take a break right there. Our guest tonight, David Wilcock, talking Atlantis and Antarctica and what is going on down south, and we're going to get to the bottom of all of this.
Yes. It's we're about to turn into the planet Hoth from Star Wars. Wild stuff, and not everybody out there is working on tax cuts and budgets and deadly Black Death diseases. Some people have a lot of time on their hands, and stories like this sort of accent that. Well, so will this story too, because when I think of Star Wars and Star Trek, especially Star Trek, remember Star Trek that they could teleport, where they could actually take you from place to place, from the ship to the planet, from the alien ship to the other alien ship, from one part of the ship to the other part of the ship you could teleport. Well, here's a story of a hospital patient, supposedly, that was pretty out of it after surgery, that teleported himself up into the ceiling where he was found dead. Check this out.
A very strange story here, and what some are saying could be linked to spontaneous teleportation. After a patient that was in the hospital for an operation vanished and then was found no longer living in the hospital ceiling. The staff at the hospital, along with police, began investigating the case and have no idea how he disappeared from his bed in under a minute when he was sedated and out of it. And he could not move to begin with. He had just had major surgery on his stomach. And boom, flash, he's gone.
Yes, and they found him in the ceiling, through the tiles, dead body. Operated on, dead body, teleported through this ceiling. Okay, yeah, good luck with that. All right, let's move on to Feel Good Story. Last story of the podcast. This is a really good one, and this involves one name you're maybe familiar with from Lone Survivor, Marcus Luttrell, and Bill Fly. Bill Fly is a U.S. veteran, 99 years old, almost 100, lives down in the Houston area. He lost his home, and this story is something that I came across the last couple of days. And if this doesn't give you sort of a feel-good about what you do for each other, I don't know what does. Check this story out about Marcus Luttrell and Bill Fly.
A member of the greatest generation.
I was a first lieutenant.
World War II veteran Bill Fly just survived Houston's greatest natural disaster, too.
It just takes your breath away, I'll tell you.
The 99-year-old's belongings became another peak in the mountain range of rubbish that lines his Norchester neighborhood street, after 3 feet of water ruined homes that never flooded before.
It's hard to realize that that's used to be in my house.
Fly built this house 45 years ago and shared it with his wife of 69 years, Mary Beth, until her death earlier this year.
This was the kitchen.
Their daughter, Kathy, says her parents never bought flood insurance and could never put a price on the army of support they've seen this week.
It's turned such a disaster into such an amazing experience. It really has.
Former Navy SEAL Mark Luttrell, the man who inspired the book and movie Lone Survivor, is among those who've made it their mission to help Mr. Fly rebuild. They hope to have him back in his home by his 100th birthday this November.
They cannot realize what they have done. They can't realize how much it's appreciated.
It's enough to bring a man raised to show little emotion.
I just think of all those people that came in and helped like they did, donated money, did what they could. I can't.
To clearly heartfelt tears.
It's an incredible story. Yeah, like I said, it makes you feel good to see these kind of stories, because it's not about politics, it's not about sports, it's not about feelings or anything else other than doing something really legitimately, genuinely good for another person with no expectations of anything in return. And hats off to Marcus Luttrell and all his folks down there in Texas for taking care of one of their own. I want to remind you where to find us. You can get us on Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, YouTube, various spots, or you can go right straight to unsafespacesUSA.com. Again, any suggestions, producer at unsafespacesUSA.com is the place to find us and to get something to us as far as a story you may want to suggest or something we can do. All right. Thank you for watching this edition of Unsafe Spaces, and time for us to say to you, happy trails.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Who cares about the clouds if we're together? Just sing a song and bring the sunny way.